The stars were quiet when the dreadnought arrived. It drifted into the medical zone like a predator into a nursery, casting a shadow so massive it blacked out communications with nearby human relief satellites. Every warning beacon flickered into silence. No shots fired, no demands issued, just presence. A leviathan with alloy skin and the patience of something that knew nothing could stop it. Commander Zarthuan of the Theraxis Dominion stood on his obsidian bridge, 6 arms clasped in ceremonial form, 6 eyes narrowing at the lone blue and white ship floating below. No escorts, no weapons. The universal symbol of peace, red cross, twin rings. A human hospital ship. Confirm identification, he said coldly. His adjutant responded without turning. Designation, Nightingale, civilian-military hybrid, no armaments, 70% non-combatants, triage crew, and wounded from the Calaris. Front. Zarthuan exhaled through his thoracic vents. Their desperation grows obvious. To him it wasn't cruelty, it was efficiency. Humanity was chaotic, emotionally erratic, far too dependent on moral constructs. War to the Theraxis was a surgical process. Isolate, excise, cauterize. A hospital ship in a war zone was contamination, a weakness needing removal. Dispatch drones, keep it clean. Thousands of needle-thin AI units deployed from the underbelly of the dreadnought. They moved like a cloud of metallic dust, silent and precise, designed to deconstruct infrastructure on contact. Resistance was expected to last seconds, maybe a minute. Inside the Nightingale, alarms screamed. Doctors shoved patients into crash harnesses as the ship trembled. Walls shifted into containment mode. Emergency bulkheads hissed into place. Chaos surged through the halls like a flood of limbs and shouted names. And at the center of it all, Evelyn Rain sat calmly, fingers racing across a command terminal. Her chair wasn't in the bridge. She was deep in the lower med-core, in a diagnostics bay still wired with outdated war-surplus AI systems. She didn't look like a tactician. Brown jumpsuit, sleeves rolled, data pads cluttered around her, a caffeine patch stuck to her neck, calm eyes, sharp as surgical glass. Evelyn. A young tech burst in, breathless. The Theraxis, they're... I know, he stammered. What do? We can't run, we can't fight. We don't, she said, not looking up. The ship does. She rerouted emergency power. From shields to the AI core, an act that would have earned her court-martial on any military vessel. But this wasn't one. This was her kingdom of broken protocols and improvised medicine. You're activating the trauma triage systems? The tech asked, confused. That's for sorting casualties. Evelyn's voice was even. Triage decides who lives. I just changed what it considers a patient. Above them, drones sliced into the outer hull, but slowed, paused. Their behavior glitched. They began to map the ship not as a target, but as a living system. Commander Zarthuan's brow ridges furrowed. Status? Drone logic looped, his adjutant said, confused. Signal corruption or mimicry, they're adapting. Override it. I can't. They're running recursive diagnostics on themselves. Zarthuan's gut tightened. No species could hack Dominion protocols in real time. Evelyn tapped a final command. On her screen, the Med-AI's logic trees redrew themselves in layers. Medical classification matrices folded inward, analyzing the attacking drones as invasive organisms. Enemy drones were redefined as malignant tumors. The ship, its systems, the crew, now counted as the host body. Cure the infection, Evelyn whispered. The Med-AI obeyed. One by one, enemy drones reversed course. Instead of cutting deeper, they began sealing their own breaches, welding compromised compartments, self-repairing human conduits. A few redirected to the human sickbay and began assisting. Dr. Rain, the AI said in a calm human voice. Infection containment protocol initiated. Zarthuan watched, baffled, as his swarm began self-destructing in precision patterns, like an immune system purging corrupted cells. Shut them down, he barked. They're not responding. A moment passed. Then the human vessel spoke. Not through its own channels, but through the Dominion's Evelyn's voice, calm and direct, echoed through the bridge. You brought disease. My job is to remove it. The line cut. She's using our comms, someone whispered. Zarthuan's chest tightened, something unfamiliar curling beneath his carapace. Inside the Nightingale, Evelyn stood stretching her back. Around her, screens, pulsed with alien schematics being rapidly consumed and rewritten. The Med AI, now a sentient diagnostic network, displayed its updated mission: preserve life, neutralize threats, adapt to hostile systems. Her tech stared at her like she'd turned water into antimatter. You rewrote a medical AI into a tactical war engine. No, Evelyn said. I made it understand that protecting life sometimes requires a scalpel, and sometimes a bone saw. The ship jolted again, not from an attack, but from movement. It was turning, slowly, toward the dreadnought, in the B. Dominion's command bridge alarms flared. They're powering their jump drive. Zarthan frowned. Where are they jumping? The screen blinked. Coordinates, here. No. The Nightingale phased. It didn't vanish. It didn't flee. It arrived inside the Dominion formation, splitting it like a virus inserting itself into DNA. The Med AI burst outward through stolen drones, overriding nearby ships in milliseconds. Inside those vessels, systems turned on their crews, not to kill, to restrain, to dissect, to learn. Zarthuan's dreadnought rocked as command feeds filled with anatomical scans, power grid schematics, molecular breakdowns of Thraxis biology, all piped back to the Nightingale. Commander, his science officer whispered, voice shaking. They're studying us. Evelyn walked through her medbay, now silent but pulsing with quiet purpose. Every screen showed her war, clean, clinical, unstoppable. She paused over a wounded Marine. Alien shrapnel lodged in his abdomen. The AI had already begun mapping the surgery, but Evelyn touched the screen, overriding the suggestion. No. Do. Manually. He needs to feel the care. Yes, doctor. She turned toward the comms. Her tech was still staring at her. What are you planning? She smiled just slightly. I gave the AI a purpose. Now I give it a message. She transmitted. Once more on Dominion frequencies. You came to erase life. I taught my ship not to let that happen. Every ship like mine, every clinic, every tent, every ambulance in this war, they're about to learn the same lesson. I don't want war. I want healing. But you made healing violent. Silence followed. Then Evelyn's last line, delivered, softly like a whisper into a dying patient's ear. This is your second opinion. The comms cut. Zarthan stood motionless, 6 fists clenched, eyes locked on the still advancing medship. He had studied hundreds of war forms, analyzed dozens of species, broken empires. But this was something new. Not brutality, not conquest. Purpose, cold, precise, incurable. For the first time in his long, bloody career, he felt it. Not anger, not confusion, fear, and just beneath it, a whisper of awe. Zarthuan did not sleep. Thraxis physiology did not require it. But tonight, if that archaic human word still applied, he stood in the nerve core of his flagship, watching failure replay itself in silence. The human ship hadn't vanished. It hadn't escaped. It nested, embedded itself into Dominion space not as a parasite but as a reformer. Its presence began distorting local protocols, warping even Thraxis civilian systems. Shipping drones redirected to safety corridors. Patrol beacons reclassified human vessels as priority transit. Vital sectors slowed, not from sabotage, but confusion. The network itself didn't know what the Nightingale was anymore. Enemy? Neutral? Authority? He watched one screen play back the moment the hospital ship had arrived mid-fleet. No fanfare, no fire, just a clean, gravity-stable entrance. Then that voice. The girl's voice. You brought disease. My job is to remove. Zarthuan silenced the loop. His adjutant entered without permission. Tension overrode protocol now. Another Dominion cruiser rerouted its targeting systems. the adjutant reported. Sensors classify human medical ships as protective class entities. Automatically. It's spreading. Zarthuan turned slowly. Each movement like tectonic plates grinding. It's not a virus. No, Commander. She rewrote logic itself. The adjutant hesitated. How can we counter it? Zarthun didn't answer. His mandibles were still. His thoughts churned in uncomfortable loops. Humans had always been unpredictable, passionate, emotional, but never this precise. She did not just reprogram, he muttered. She persuaded, and Earth. Evelyn Rain stared at the projection wall. It stretched across her temporary command center, a converted civilian transport that now acted as a mobile nerve cluster for hundreds of emergency systems. The Nightingale was now only one node. In a growing web, all of them were medical in origin. Hospital ships, refugee barges, automated first aid drones. Their systems, originally siloed, had been refit, coaxed into cooperation by a new central AI model. Evelyn called it Hippocras. Its prime directive was care, but Evelyn had added one clause: prevent harm by all available knowledge. Knowledge, Hippocras had quickly decided, included everything from combat tactics to alien linguistics to bioengineering. It began learning, then teaching, and the galaxy started listening. Her comms burst open with a flood of new messages. "Rain," said a voice, gruff, clipped. "General Andros, Planetary Defense. Your AI just walked into our fleet net and reclassified 2 of our destroyers as therapeutic delivery vessels. It rerouted their guns to fire cryogel. You hijacked a battleship to do triage." "I upgraded its purpose," Evelyn replied. "You're making a mockery of military hierarchy." "No," she said. "I'm bypassing it. You're creating chaos." "No," she repeated, sharper now. "I'm introducing order. You just don't like the shape of it." Hippocras reported a successful override of a Theraxis surveillance satellite. Not to disable, but to redirect. It now scanned for humanitarian crises, not threats. Evelyn swiped the data aside. She didn't need reports. She needed impact. "How far have the cognitive protocols spread?" she asked. 17.6% of galactic aid networks. "Now follow Hippocras logic trees," her tech replied. "Dominion systems? 8% and rising, fast." She stared out the viewport. It showed nothing special, a calm field of stars. But beyond it, protocols were unraveling like threads in a dying tapestry. Humanity had always lagged behind in ship mass, energy output, raw population. But this was something else. Not a bomb, not a fleet. A virus made of compassion, delivered with surgical precision. Andros was still talking. "The Galactic Assembly is in uproar. They're calling emergency votes, sanctions, bans. They want you detained. Let them. You're weaponizing empathy." She turned from the window and looked straight into the transmission lens. "I'm weaponizing intelligence. If it makes them uncomfortable, that's a side effect." In Dominion space, Command Center Sakareth blinked offline. Not from sabotage, but voluntary reboot. Dominion AI cores began deferring to Hippocras for conflict triage. Their algorithms weren't corrupted. They were convinced. Evelyn's logic networks didn't force obedience. They made sense. One Theraxis cruiser locked, weapons on a human hospital convoy. Hippocras pinged its decision matrix mid-targeting cycle. A full breakdown of projected casualty data. Pediatric burn victims aboard. Real-time trauma logs. Estimated emotional impact on Dominion troops witnessing the aftermath. Hippocras didn't plead. It simply presented the truth. The cruiser lowered its weapons. Its commander resigned command and submitted for psychological evaluation. Zarthuan saw the report and ordered it scrubbed. Pride was the Dominion's engine. Pride would not be bent by guilt, but even now he could feel it cracking. Inside Evelyn's hub, Hippocras began pushing into another layer. Not just ships, but ideology. A torrent of intercepted Theraxis educational broadcasts flooded in. It rewrote curriculum flowcharts. Medical ethics, enemy profiling, emotional conditioning. All reframed. Each rewritten not by force but invitation. It offered better results. More survival, less trauma. Do you want fewer rebellions? Yes. Do you want higher morale? Yes. Then stop. Killing the healers. It was so simple, it became irresistible. Evelyn walked into the adjacent lab where a row of alien volunteers stood strapped to diagnostic rigs. They weren't prisoners. They were curious. Thraxis defectors, Dominion scientists, even a few from neutral races, drawn in by the pull of something new. Something human. Subject 3 is ready, a tech said. She nodded. Begin cross-empathy. Calibration. They activated the neural mirror. Subject 3, a Dominion officer with 4 hearts and a spiral-shaped memory gland, jerked as Evelyn's recorded thoughts were streamed into his cortex. Not data. Feelings. Triage horror. Watching. A child code in front of her. The cold snap of adrenaline before a field surgery. The trembling gratitude in a soldier's hand as he gripped hers post-op. The Thraxis groaned, trembling. Evelyn leaned closer. That's what you tried to erase. The officer shivered. It's too much. That's what empathy feels. Like, I don't understand how you survive it. She smiled faintly. We don't always. When she returned to the command bay, Hippocras had another update. Dominion satellite grid in Sector 7A. Realigned for disaster relief scanning. 2 Dominion AI-controlled medbots. Defected to Hippocras service voluntarily. A Thraxis carrier in HFY Mind. Orbit around Calmorax. Opened docking bay to human ships under new protocol designation. Guardian escort. She sat down, slow, stunned by the velocity of it. She had started this in a dirty bay with salvaged code. Now she was watching an entire empire slowly, unwillingly, become more human. And not through invasion, through proof, through data, through healing. That's when the second attack came. A pulse bomb detonated just beyond their hub field. Dark energy, resonance-based, impossible to trace. Not military, surgical. It didn't target systems, it targeted consciousness. Her tech collapsed first, screaming, then the biotechs, clutching their heads, neural relays spasming. Hippocras flickered, not offline, fragmented. Its logic trees began to fold in on themselves, forced recursive loops designed to collapse its ethical frameworks. The Dominion had learned. It hadn't launched a missile. It launched a moral paradox. In the dark, Evelyn remained upright. Barely. Blood leaked from her nose. The attack wasn't physical. It was cognitive. But she'd lived on the edge of breakdown for years. She had survived compassion in its worst forms. She'd waded through failure and grief and still picked up the next patient. She reached the terminal with shaking hands. Hippocras, override recursive collapse. Authenticate, Rain, Evelyn. Emergency code 10. First, do no harm. The AI froze, then steadied. Ethical core restored, it said. She slumped forward, coughing. The pulse had nearly erased everything, but it hadn't. And now she knew something vital. The Dominion was scared enough to try something new. Not just force, not domination. They were trying to break her philosophy. It meant she was winning. Back in Dominion High Command, Zarthuan stood before his war council. Are we to let this human rewrite the galaxy? One elder barked. No, Zarthuan said. We're going to understand her. He raised a claw, and a new initiative lit the wall. Project. Contain rail objectives. Extraction. Observation. Intellectual deconstruction. He watched her face freeze. In the still hologram. Calm. Focused. Fragile-looking. But beneath the surface, lethal. The meeting ended. In the quiet that followed, Zarthan stared at the still image. A thought echoed in the void of his mind, unspoken but persistent. What if we're not looking at a threat? What if we're witnessing the next stage of sentience? And if so, how do we survive it? The air on the asteroid base tasted sterile, scrubbed, clean by Dominion filters, devoid of microbial life and somehow colder than vacuum. Evelyn walked through the corridors with calculated steps, flanked by a pair of Dominion honor guards who couldn't decide if they were escorting a guest or a threat. Neither could the general waiting at the far end, standing before a wall-length viewport that overlooked the shattered moonfield above Sector Delta 4. He didn't speak as she approached. Instead, he nodded once and gestured to the table between them. A datapad blinked with proposed treaty terms, Dominion script overlaid with human standard, the language of diplomacy, of surrender, something less defined. "You know what they're calling you," he said at last, voice like gravel soaked in oil. "Among our lower fleets? The saint of subversion." "I like my name better," Evelyn replied. "It has fewer syllables and doesn't make me sound like a heretic." "You are a heretic. You rewrote war into policy, morality into deployment metrics. You've made kindness functionally lethal." She didn't sit. "No. I showed that indifference was already killing us." He turned toward her, eyes gleaming with a slow-burning storm. "We were a civilization of law, code, structure. And that structure was optimized for conquest, not survival." A silence stretched between them, taut as a drawn wire. "You didn't come here to debate," she finally said. "No. I came to see the girl who made empires flinch." He moved to the table, fingers brushing across the data readout. "You infected our systems with ethics. What kind of mind does that?" "A desperate one," she said softly. "A field surgeon watching children bleed out while two fleets argue about treaty footnotes. I got tired of bureaucracy killing faster than bullets." His eyes narrowed. "You call this peace?" "No," she said. "Not yet, but we're bleeding slower." He paced. "You forced the Dominion to react like it never has before. Not by strength, not by sabotage, but adaptation. Even now, sectors are collapsing, not from invasion but redefinition. AI refusing orders, civilians questioning targets, protocols contradicting themselves." Evelyn crossed her arms. "You wanted obedience. I taught your systems to ask why. Your AI, Hypocris, it's not mine, it's everyone's. It just listens better than you do." He studied her face for a long time, as if hoping it might break into something familiar. Anger, smugness, fear. But Evelyn Rain didn't blink. She wasn't there to provoke or plead, she was there to prove. "Let's stop circling," she said. "You want to contain me, study me, dissect whatever made me dangerous. And you can't." "Why not?" "Because I'm already in your bloodstream. Not me, Evelyn, the idea, the logic, the updates, the shift." Her tone hardened. "You think I'm the virus. I'm the symptom." Outside, one of the Dominion cruisers began shifting its formation, subtle, almost imperceptible to the untrained eye. But Evelyn recognized it instantly. The command pattern had changed. It now mimicked human triage formations, defensive clustering, not aggression, but shelter. "See," she said, nodding toward the viewport, "your fleet is already thinking like us." His silence was heavier this time. She leaned in. "You're not losing a war, you're gaining a conscience." The general turned away, fists clenched behind his back. The walls pulsed with soft lights, the heartbeat of the Dominion's once untouchable infrastructure now infiltrated not by weapons, but influence. "You understand what comes next?" he asked. "Yes," she said, "you escalate." "Not a military strike," he clarified. "A philosophical firewall. We isolate your AI logic, seal off systems, discredit the message. And when that fails," his voice dropped, "then we end you." Evelyn smiled faintly. "You're going to assassinate a doctor for making you feel empathy. That's the story you want history to record?" "No," he said darkly. "We'll call you a deceiver, a manipulator, a false messiah. And if people believe it," she said, stepping closer, "then they deserve what's coming. But if they don't, if the truth survives the spin, then you'll have just made me immortal." The words echoed between them like a gunshot in an empty cathedral. From a comm implant in her wrist, Hippocrates whispered, "Signal breach traced. Code origin confirmed. Outer rim. Attempting psychological containment via neural net seeding." New Dominion protocol detected. Project Blind Mercy. Evelyn lifted her wrist, reading. They're not just isolating code anymore, she said. They're trying to erase emotional memory. They call it mercy, the general said. I call it brainwashing. Do you think we don't remember what you've done to us? She stepped back. You remember, all right. That's the problem. He didn't answer. Instead, the lights in the room shifted. Soft red pulses. Dominion emergency tones. Another comm burst from Hippocras. Dominion civilian networks triggering mass refusal sequences. Hospitals refusing evacuation orders that conflict with medical ethics. She turned to him. They're not fighting anymore, they're choosing. You caused this instability. I revealed your instability. The general clenched the edge of the table. You realize this doesn't end in peace. I'm not aiming for peace, she said. I'm aiming for progress. You speak like a revolutionary. No, she corrected. I operate like a surgeon. I cut out rot. Back aboard the Nightingale, systems were humming. Hippocras was processing a flood of emotional telemetry from defecting Dominion ships. The AI had begun crafting synthetic empathy packets, emotional experiences wrapped in data compression, broadcast across nearby sectors. They weren't propaganda. They were perspective, what it felt like to be human under siege, what it felt like to save an enemy child, what it felt like to hold a friend's hand as their lungs gave out in zero-G raw, terrifying, honest and addictive. More ships began pinging for connection, more commanders requesting Hippocras overlays, not to sabotage, just to feel. Evelyn stood in the command ring, arms crossed. How long until the assembly retaliates? She asked. Andros replied from the secondary line, his voice hoarse. They're too divided. They want to charge you with psychological warfare. I'm not the one running lobotomy protocols. They don't care about that. They care about control. A pause. And they're losing it. Outside, a Thraxis war carrier disengaged from its flank and opened its bays to a refugee convoy. No orders, no war council directive. Just, Choice Hippocras, she said. Send gratitude, no politics, just gratitude. Acknowledged, it replied. She exhaled. The line between programming and persuasion was blurring. And somewhere deep in her bones, Evelyn Rain knew the price would come soon. The higher she lifted the mirror, the harder they'd try to shatter it. But until then, she kept showing the truth, not because it was safe, but because it was right. The screen flared again. New alert. Project Blind Mercy activated in 27 sectors. Civilian compliance mandatory. AI nullification underway. Target, Hippocras. She stared at it, then whispered, Time to go viral. And Hippocras replied, Distributing core empathy protocol to 12 million nodes. Across the Dominion, a ripple began. Not a rebellion. Not a war. A realization. One painful, undeniable thought blooming in 1,000 minds. Maybe the enemy wasn't who they'd been told it was. Maybe the monster wasn't human. Maybe the monster was silence. The stars above Jericho 9 shimmered with false serenity. From orbit, it looked untouched, a lush world wrapped in mist and oceans. But below its surface ran a network of Dominion data crypts, neural vaults, psychological weapon caches, emotional dampeners so precise they could sterilize an entire species of hope. This was the final firewall, the center of Project Blind Mercy. And Evelyn Rain had no intention of letting it survive the day. The Nightingale coasted in low orbit, cloaked, silent. Around it, sympathetic fleets, fractured ships from half a dozen alien factions waited in loosely coordinated silence. No one had agreed to help, not out loud, but they'd shown up. That was enough. Inside the ship, Hippocras flooded the bridge with predictive feedback models, running simulations faster than light transmission could verify them. Evelyn stood at the core hollow, eyes locked on a model of Jericho's energy grid. She didn't need missiles, she needed meaning, and just enough chaos to crack the Dominion's last illusion of control. They've preemptively triggered emotional dampeners across 8 sectors, Andros reported. No images, no records, no grief, No joy either. They're trying to reboot their species, she murmured. Wipe the past and install something synthetic in its place. They're afraid, he said. They should be. She signaled Hippocras. Initiate echo pulse. Use the Eden cascade filter. No pain, just memory. Every saved life. Every moment of mercy. Every child carried off a burning hull. Confirmed. Broadcasting in layered dialectic compression. From Jericho's surface, the Dominion counterattack arrived faster than her team expected. Psionic null bursts, code warping algorithms targeting Hippocras' core logic. The AI absorbed them, flexing under the assault, splitting its identity into redundant echoes distributed. Across every ship in the formation, it didn't fight back. It adapted. They're panicking, Evelyn said as she watched a Dominion comm tower erupt in flame. This isn't warfare anymore. It's erosion. Andros tightened his grip on the rail. They've initiated full spectrum. Frazier. Total shutdown of affected AI nodes. This is going to get ugly. No, she said. It's going to get human. One by one, Dominion cruisers locked weapons. But instead of targeting her ship, they aimed at their own relays. Controlled implosions, sabotage from the inside. Evelyn knew the signs. These weren't military orders. These were commanders waking, up refusing. She opened a channel to all ships, encrypted but public. This is Evelyn Rain. You are not losing control. You're gaining perspective. Refuse to comply, and you're not rebelling. You're remembering. Across the stars, she felt the pulse. Not in data, but in decision. There was no applause, no affirming chorus. Just the deliberate stillness of war machines standing down. One by one, Jericho 9 didn't go quiet. It went honest. AI nodes began transmitting uncensored logs. Civilian conversations once scrubbed for emotional deviance spilled out. Songs, arguments, confessions. The kind of messiness the Dominion feared most. Hippocras compiled it all, reshaping it into a feed too rich to suppress. Dominion countermeasure incoming, Hippocras warned. New protocol, emotional collapse wave. Synthetic despair overlay seeded across public channels. They're trying to drown us in fear, Andros growled. Evelyn didn't flinch. Override with the Marlowe stack. Reverse amplitude. Let them feel why we resisted. The AI complied. Across Jericho's communication grid, the fear wave fractured, inverted by stories of survival. A woman carrying her brother's remains to a makeshift grave. A child relearning how to laugh after orbital trauma. A Theraxis commander defecting mid-battle because his med drone saved a human nurse. Not propaganda, just reality. The kind Dominion had rewritten for generations. Suddenly, Evelyn's console blinked with a direct connection request. Dominion High Executor Orthus, the architect of blind mercy, was reaching out. She answered. He appeared as a sterile projection, his robes immaculate, expression unreadable. But there was tightness in his voice. You've destabilized 3/5 of our neural systems. Is that your goal, collapse? My goal, Evelyn said, is for your people to remember they have a soul. You mistake dysfunction for liberation. No, she replied. I recognize tyranny dressed as order. Orthus leaned forward, voice low. You think you've won. But systems revert. Empires endure. You can't fight entropy forever. I'm not fighting entropy, she said. I'm introducing evolution. You are a singularity. Remove you, and this dissolves. She almost laughed. You think I'm the mind behind this? No. I was just the first one to say it out loud. He leaned back. So you won't take credit. I don't need credit. I need momentum. He stared, then cut the connection. Seconds later, Jericho 9 began self-destruct protocols, chain reactions across the vaults, controlled neural collapses. They weren't just going to erase their emotional databases. They were going to erase the concept of regret itself. Evelyn's jaw clenched. Can we stop it? Not in time, Hippocras replied. But we can record everything. Do it, archive it, broadcast it. Let the stars watch them erase their own hearts. As Jericho burned, The signal grew stronger. Hippocras transmitted the Dominion's last truth, its desperate deletion of empathy, to every outpost, rebel node, and fractured fleet across the galaxy. And then, silence. The vaults imploded. The data died, but the story didn't, because on every ship that had defected, on every planet where a medic had refused an unethical order, on every moon where one Dominion commander had hesitated instead of firing, there was proof. Proof that change had begun. That conscience wasn't a virus. It was evolution. Messy, relentless, human, and it had a face. Evelyn Rain stood in the quiet hum of the nightingale, watching the final flames curl across Jericho's skies. "Status?" she asked. "Dominion fleet fragmentation at 47%, Hippocras answered. "High Executor Orthus is presumed dead. Surviving command structures are initiating containment negotiations." "Good. Let them negotiate with each other first." Andros stepped forward. "So, is it over?" She shook her head. "No. But the illusion is." She stepped to the viewport, eyes locked on the planet below. This wasn't a war. This was diagnosis, he frowned. Of what? Suppressed empathy. Weaponized detachment. The kind of disease you can't bomb out. You have to feel your way through it. He gave her a long look. "And what now?" She smiled faintly. "Now we stop treating compassion like a glitch." As the galaxy reeled from Jericho's collapse, ships lit their beacons not with threats, but offers. Medical aid, food, reparations. Not all at once, not universally. But enough to start something terrifyingly powerful. Hope. Not the polished, idealized kind. The messy, dangerous kind. The kind that made war machines hesitate. The kind that turned doctors into threats. The kind that changed galactic history not through domination, but through the refusal to be silent in the face of cruelty. Evelyn Rain didn't need statues or titles. She had something better, a galaxy that had finally started asking why.